My opening statement is that gnomes and halflings fulfill a similar purpose. They should make people happy. They're funny little people who are genuinely good, find it difficult to be evil, and they should keep a game from taking itself too seriously. To remind you that this is the fantasy genre, to demonstrate whimsy and hope and bravery despite appearances. Where people make a mistake is they think this means halflings and gnomes need to be written with the same kind of social profile as the people who insisted we needed more seasons of Invader Zim. And honestly, if this is your only exposure to gnomes and halflings, then absolutely you're going to hate them. This is a normal, healthy response. Halflings and gnomes are probably the most pop media-ized fantasy race, which is unfortunate and unnecessary. Gnomes have a strong cultural association with elementalism, alchemy, and cultures kind of waffling in their folklore over whether or not they're a secretive people or some kind of yokai. My personal approach with this information is to make gnomes the more serious and aloof of the pair, interested in magic, religion, a little bit isolationist even. Gnomes are still good, lighthearted, and even goofy, but compared to their halfling cousins, they could be perceived as a little dour and secretive. I think an important cultural aspect to pair with gnomes is a strong attachment to the idea of sacred lands, sacred groves, sacred trees, sacred rivers and springs, and sacred stones. The gnomish perspective on environmentalism is some kind of combination of the Icelandic hidden folk elf stones and Chinese geomancy or feng shui. Gnomes are obsessed with creating and preserving natural spaces and the magical power they generate. Gnomish kingdoms and craft should skirt the line between high-functioning naturalism and eccentric fantasy elements. Everything the gnomes make or design should be like something out of a fable or a storybook, delightful and magical, but under scrutiny, actually very livable and convenient. I loathe the idea of gnomes being perceived as tinkerers or mechanics, but in the same breath, I do think gnomes would have a fascination for discrete simple machines and enchanted infrastructure. Something more in line with Zelda-esque pseudo-mechanical magical objects, but nothing as gaudy as Final Fantasy's crystals and cars, or Warcraft's literal cogs and bolts attempt at steampunk aesthetic. This segues into my other statement that gnomes should see the world in fractals, giving them a dopey or placid appearance, but then this is also what attracts them to occultism, sorcery, and the other gnomish passions in life, like herbology, precious metals, gems, alchemy, architecture, and astronomy. Gnomes have an overwhelming compulsion towards seeking patterns, connecting things, processing information, and ordering space. And, hypocrite that I am, maybe there is some room in there for Final Fantasy crystals. You know what, despite everything, gnomes should still be a little annoying. But annoying and goofy more in the Ralph Bashki depicting Jewish culture brand of constant ritual nonsense. Physically, gnomes should be an entire head taller than halflings and a bit more robust from their stronger affiliation with elemental earth. And like the earth, gnomes should be more enduring, living significantly longer than halflings, growing those large, magnificent gnomish beards and accruing gnomish wrinkles. I think a good gnome should live a contrasted life. They start off as Link from The Legend of Zelda, but then at the end of their life become the old man in the cave. Halflings aren't a quote-unquote real mythological creature, but the essence of my platonic vision for halflings has real mythological precedence in house and harvest spirits. Not just the obvious ones like Luton, Nesse, and house elves, but also harvest and poverty gods from Greek and Japanese mythology. Just like how dwarves emulate and embody a lot of the mysticism and romance we attach to industry and metallurgy, the halfling should be the fully realized agrarian species. I want to say halflings are an inoffensive, cheery, hardworking, tolerant, and abundant people. I think halflings are at their absolute best when they emulate the small, daily, grateful actions that normal people do that make the world more bearable and keep cynicism, misery, and evil from overtaking everything, like how Tolkien intended. And perhaps their most controversial influence, that they maybe embody a little bit of the historical cultural change brought by early Neolithic farmers, where a small, timid farming people slowly and persistently refused to be defeated by the monstrous and primordial world they found themselves in. If you ever look at a fantasy landscape and wonder to yourself how it can be so picturesque and pastoral after literally thousands of years of constant unending violence with the literal devil, it should be because of the constant enduring actions of halflings. Nothing about halfling society or their craft is particularly fantastical or extraordinary in the same way gnomes have it. It is idyllic, though. Halfling country and everything the halflings make is almost as if it were from a Ghibli film, in that it successfully captures the exact nostalgic essence you needed out of it. Admittingly, these aren't very exciting fantasy elements, but halflings really are just excellent at creating the world they want to live in. Halflings aggressively pursue comfort, they're very likable, empathetic, and charismatic. They excel at peaceful resolution, and this makes them uniquely suited to foraging, horticulture, and animal domestication. Where the table meets the top is these attributes also make halflings aggressively intolerable of injustice, evil, and any kind of perceived suffering. You know the saying that the way to hell is paved with good intentions? That is a human problem. Halflings will pave over hell with good intentions, and they will do it at night so sinners can still get to work on time. Halflings are the guy. They're him. Physiologically speaking, I diverge from the Tolkien canon a bit further. If anything, because I put shoes on them. Halflings have an overall adolescent appearance that persists throughout most of their short lives, before they spontaneously turn into a raisin and promptly die at the age of like 54. They should be cute and pleasant to look at, and not weird, grotesque midgets or Funko Pop creatures. Halflings somewhat contrast gnomes with their short, cosmopolitan lives. They eat a lot, you find them everywhere agriculture is possible, they have a ton of sex, they have dozens of kids, and they try to leave the world a better place than they left it. Thus concludes all of my gnomish and halfling thoughts. I still don't know how to end videos, so if you've made it this far, leave a nice comment for me. Okay, bye!